I didn't hear the gasp from the guests or the clatter of a champagne glass somewhere behind me. All I heard was the sharp, high-pitched ring in my ears and the pounding of my own heartbeat. My glasses flew off my nose and skidded across the polished marble floor, one lens cracking like thin ice. I stared at them for a second stupidly, as if they belonged to somebody else. Then I did what any humiliated old woman does when 160 people are watching. I bent down and pretended my bones didn't ache. The skirt of my simple navy dress brushed the cold floor. My fingers trembled as I reached for the twisted frame. No one moved to help me. Not my son. Not the bridesmaids. Not the relatives who used to kiss my cheek at family barbecues. I could feel their eyes burning holes in my back, heavy and curious and judgmental. God, that looked bad, someone whispered. She shouldn't have pushed the bride like that. Another voice murmured, even though I hadn't pushed anyone. I'd only hesitated. I'd only kept my hand over the small metal ring of keys in my purse when Madison demanded them like a landlord, not a daughter-in-law. I straightened up slowly, my knees protesting my cracked glasses clutched in my fist. Through the spiderweb of the broken lens, the chandeliers blurred into halos. Madison stood in front of me in her perfect white gown, breaths coming hard-face flushed with righteous fury. "That's what you get for trying to embarrass me," she hissed loud enough for everyone to hear. "A woman your age doesn't need her own place anyway. You should have handed over the keys when I asked." Nobody stopped her. Nobody said, "Madison, that's enough." Not even Daniel. My son kept his eyes on the floor. His jaw clenched, his hands hanging uselessly at his sides. For 35 years, I had been his safe place. Tonight, I was an obstacle he didn't dare defend. I heard it then, the low, poisonous hum of 100 opinions. She's old. Honestly, a smaller place would be better for her. Exactly. Why is she being so stubborn? Madison's right. It's not safe for someone that age to live alone. She should be grateful they even want to help her. Each sentence was another little knife sliding between my ribs. My cheek burned. My pride burned more. I could have screamed. I could have slapped Madison back. I could have pointed at her and shouted the truth until my voice broke. Instead, I swallowed every bitter word and did the only thing I could do to keep from shattering completely. I turned around and walked away. The music didn't start again. It was as if the entire ballroom was holding its breath while the pathetic aging mother of the groom made her exit. My heels clicked against the marble, too loud, too slow, echoing through the gold-trimmed doors as they closed behind me. The hallway outside the Willow Creek Grand Hotel ballroom was colder, quieter. White walls framed photos of other happy couples, soft carpet that muffled the sound of my steps. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard it hurt to breathe. This is it, I thought. This is the line. They crossed it, and if I stay silent now, I will never get myself back. I leaned against the wall for a moment, pressing my fingers to the throbbing side of my face. My skin felt hot and swollen, but the real pain sat lower somewhere in my chest, heavy and suffocating. From inside the ballroom, the murmur continued, muffled, but clear enough to make out little pieces. Madison was just trying to start her life with Daniel. That apartment is wasted on someone her age. Maybe this will push her into a retirement community. It'd be safer. They weren't talking about me as a person. They were talking about me as a problem. My throat tightened. My hand went instinctively to the worn leather purse hanging from my shoulder. For a second, I thought I might pull out the apartment keys out of habit, feel the familiar, comforting weight of them in my palm. Instead, my fingers brushed my phone. I knew exactly what I had to do. I pulled it out my hands, shaking so much I nearly dropped it. The screen glowed harsh and cold in the dim hallway. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I had promised myself I'd only ever use in a true emergency. Thomas Reed. The man who knew every secret I had spent the last 20 years hiding, even from my own son. I pressed call. He picked up on the second ring. "Margaret, is everything okay?" My voice came out thin at first, like it belonged to someone else. "Tom, it's time." There was a pause, and in that brief silence, I could hear the DJ in the ballroom trying to restart the evening with some upbeat song trying to plaster music over cruelty. Time for what Thomas asked, his tone already sharpening. He knew me too well for them to know who I really am, I said, and felt something settle inside me. Something like steel. Bring the folder, the big one. Come to the Willow Creek Grand Hotel, ballroom level, as fast as you can. Margaret, he said gently, are you sure? Once we open that folder, there's no going back. Behind the sting in my eyes, I saw Daniel's face as Madison slapped me, how he had stayed frozen, how he hadn't taken a single step forward. I thought of the way Madison had leaned in earlier that evening, her breath warm against my ear as she whispered, "You have the keys with you, right? Don't make this difficult. We're moving in tonight." I had laughed weakly and said, "Maybe we can talk about timing after the wedding, dear." Her eyes had turned hard then. "No, we're done talking, Margaret. You said you'd help us. This is how you help." And then in front of everyone, when I hesitated, when I flinched back from handing over the ring of keys like some obedient tenant, she decided to make an example out of me. "I have never been more sure of anything in my life," I told Thomas now. My voice surprised me. It didn't sound like a victim. It sounded like a woman who had nothing left to lose. Tonight they drew their line. I'm drawing mine. "All right," he said. 15-20 minutes. I'll be there." The call ended with a soft click. For a moment, I just stood there, phone still in my hand, listening to the thud of bass through the ballroom doors. The distant laughter, the life I was supposed to be celebrating tonight. My son's wedding. My only child's big day. The day I had imagined I would cry happy tears and dance to some old song we used to sing in the car. Instead, I was alone in a hallway, holding a cracked pair of glasses and a bruised face, waiting for my financial advisor to arrive, like an attorney for the prosecution. My gaze drifted to one of the framed photos on the wall, a young bright-eyed shining parents beside her, everyone laughing. I wondered if her mother had ever been called selfish for wanting to keep her home. I wondered if anyone had ever told her, "You don't need that much space at your age." I closed my eyes. And just like that, the present blurred, and the past rushed in. 2 years. That's how long it had been since the first time Madison walked into my apartment in Portland. It was a rainy Sunday. Daniel had called the day before, his voice buzzing with excitement. "Mom, I'm bringing someone over tomorrow," he'd said. "She's special. I want you to meet her." I remembered how carefully I had tidied the little place, the rent-controlled 2-bedroom I'd lived in for over 20 years, with its scuffed hardwood floors, secondhand furniture, and mismatched mugs. I baked lemon bars. I bought fresh flowers from the corner stand, more out of habit than necessity. I even changed the cushion covers on the couch. When they arrived, Madison was all polished hair, flawless makeup, and a coat that probably cost more than my car. She smiled wide and white as she stepped through the door. Then her smile faltered. Her eyes flicked over everything at once, the small kitchen, the narrow hall, the old sofa I'd found at a thrift store, and reupholstered myself. It was a 5-second scan, but to me, it felt like a full forensic report. "Wow," she said finally. "So this is where Dan grew up." She didn't even look at me when she said it. She looked at Daniel like she'd just uncovered some mildly disappointing secret. "I like it here," I had replied, forcing lightness into my voice. "It's quiet and the neighbors are kind. It's home." "Sure," she said, dragging the word out just enough to make it sting. "It's cozy." That was the first red flag. A small one. Easy to ignore if you've spent your life making excuses for people. The second came 15 minutes later, when she was helping me carry plates to the table. "So Margaret," she said casually, opening my fridge, without asking, "How do you manage with just, what did you call it, your little pension?" She said little pension, like she was describing a disease. I shrugged. "I get by. I work part-time at the flower shop 3 days a week. It keeps me busy." Her eyebrows shot up. "At your age, shouldn't you be, I don't know, relaxing, traveling? My mom says by 60, you should have everything paid off, just living the good life." I smiled politely, even as my mind flashed back to a very different life. A life with my late husband investments, business trips, boardrooms, a life I had deliberately buried under simple clothes and a 10-year-old sedan. "You'd be amazed what people my age are still capable of," I told her gently. She smiled back, but it never reached her eyes. After that first visit, she came by more often. At first, her questions were framed as concern. "You still have a mortgage, right?" she'd ask, sipping her almond milk latte and pretending not to look at my mail on the table. "No," I'd answer. "I paid it off a long time ago." "Must be tough paying utilities and groceries on that small income," though she'd press. "I manage," I'd say. Every time she left, I felt inspected. Over the next year, the tone shifted. She started talking about senior living communities, sliding glossy brochures across my coffee table like we were negotiating a contract. "Look at this one," she cooed. "Heated pool daily activities, a shuttle to the supermarket. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. And your apartment." She waved a manicured hand around. "You could sell it or rent it out. Help Dan and me get started. Win-win." I pretended to study the pictures while my stomach clenched. I knew exactly what my little apartment represented. Not just a roof over my head, but security, autonomy. The last piece of my life I controlled entirely. "It's a big place for one person," she added one afternoon, tapping her nail against my balcony door. "2 bedrooms, living room, nice view. Don't you ever feel lonely in here, lonely?" The word floated between us, heavy and manipulative. "I feel fine," I replied. "I have neighbors. Mr. Collins next door checks on me every day. And I like having space. I raised my son in this apartment." Her eyes flicked toward Daniel, who was scrolling on his phone, oblivious. "And now he's raising a family," she said sweetly. "Or he will be soon. We just need a little help to get started in the right place." I heard the unspoken part clearly. "Your place?" At first I thought I was being paranoid. That's what happens when you get older. People tell you you're too sensitive, that you misread things. So I kept quiet. I watched. I listened. Then the debts started showing. It was little things, at first a call that made Daniel's face go pale, a letter he stuffed in his jacket pocket before I could see it. Madison complaining dramatically about how unfair the system is when another credit card company randomly slashed their limit. They lived in a stylish apartment they couldn't afford, drove shiny cars that belonged more to the bank than to them, and planned a wedding so extravagant it made my chest hurt. "Don't worry," Madison laughed once when I dared to ask if all of it was really necessary. "You only get married once, right?" I didn't answer. I'd been married only once, too. To a man who would never have spent money he didn't have just to impress strangers. Then came the day I accidentally overheard Daniel in the hallway outside my door, his voice low and urgent. "Yes, I understand," he was saying into his phone. "That's why I'm asking. If my mother were to, need help handling her affairs, what would the process be to assign me as power of attorney?" I froze in my kitchen, the dish towel slipping from my hands. A pause. "No, she's not incompetent," he added quickly. "Not yet. But she's forgetful sometimes. And she lives alone. I just want to be prepared if anything happens." Prepared. The word tasted like poison. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, the muffled city sounds of Portland drifting in through the window. Every scene of the last 2 years replayed in my mind, Madison's eyes scanning my apartment, her rehearsed concern about my safety, the way she always circled around the same topic, my home, my life, me. Little by little, the fog lifted. They weren't worried about my loneliness. They weren't losing sleep over my blood pressure or the possibility that I might slip in the shower. They were calculating. They were planning. And tonight, in that ballroom at Willow Creek, when Madison raised her hand and struck me, because I hesitated to hand over my keys to my home, I finally saw the truth with a clarity that left no room for doubt. They didn't want my company. They didn't want my advice. They didn't even want my love. They wanted what I owned. They wanted my apartment, my security, my last piece of independence. They wanted what they believed an old woman no longer deserved. They didn't need a mother. They needed a resource. And for the first time in my life, standing alone in that hotel hallway with a bruised cheek and a broken pair of glasses, I decided I was done being one. Thomas arrived exactly 17 minutes later. I heard him before I saw him, his brisk, purposeful footsteps echoing down the long marble corridor, of the Willow Creek Grand Hotel. When he appeared at the end of the hallway, pulling that heavy black briefcase on wheels, he didn't look like a financial advisor. He looked like a man carrying a detonator. His expression tightened when he saw the bruise forming on my cheek. "Margaret," he breathed, voice low with fury. "Who did this to you?" I shook my head. "Not here. Not yet." He exhaled through his nose, steadied himself, and straightened his suit jacket. "Are you ready?" I didn't feel ready, not truly. My heart hammered against my ribs, my palms damp, my body shaking with a kind of ancient anger I'd spent years trying to tame. But I lifted my chin and nodded. "Yes, let's end this." Thomas rested a hand briefly on my arm, an anchor, a final moment of humanity before the storm we were about to unleash. Then he clicked open the latches on his briefcase, just enough for me to see what was inside. Stacks of documents, property deeds, investment records, bank statements, trust fund certificates, legal contracts, signatures, dates. Proof of a life nobody in that ballroom had ever imagined I lived. "It's time," he whispered. And together we walked. The doors to the ballroom swung open as if pushed by an unseen force. Music thumped lights, glowed golden guests, held champagne flutes. But the moment I stepped inside, everything froze. The violinist's bow hung mid-air. A bridesmaid choked on her drink. A groomsman elbowed another. And somewhere in the corner, the wedding photographer lowered her camera as if she suddenly realized she'd been shooting the wrong moment all night. Then Madison turned. Still radiant in her beaded gown, still flushed with the thrill of public dominance, still basking in the illusion that she had won. The fake tight smile she'd been wearing cracked the second she saw Thomas behind me. She laughed a single sharp, nervous breath. "Ba ki le lam gi chua ju sao ho sao. Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough?" I kept walking. Not a word, not a flinch, not a tremor. Thomas stepped forward at my side, pulled the microphone stand toward him, and tapped it once. The speakers hummed to life with a loud, deep thud. Every head turned. "Ladies and gentlemen," Thomas began, voice calm, steady, almost surgical. "My name is Thomas Reed, and I am here at the request of Mrs. Margaret Halston." A ripple moved through the room, confusion first, then curiosity, then a hush so complete it felt like snowfall. "Mrs. Halston has asked me to deliver several urgent financial and legal updates," Thomas continued. Madison scoffed loudly. "Please, what financial updates?" "That old woman works at a flower shop," a few guests tittered. Most didn't. Most held their breaths. Thomas didn't even look at her. He opened the briefcase and pulled out the first document, holding it up beneath the chandelier, like a priest lifting a sacred text. For the past 4 years, Thomas announced Mrs. Halston has been providing significant financial assistance to her son, Mr. Daniel Halston. You could hear the air leave Daniel's lungs from across the room. This support includes Thomas continued reading clearly and slowly, $1,800 per month, toward rent monthly credit card payments, totaling approximately $44,000 vehicle insurance premiums, totaling $18,000, and additional personal expenses and cash transfers amounting to more than $162,000. A loud collective gasp exploded like fireworks. Whispers turned to murmurs. Murmurs turned to shock. Shock turned into a wave of shuffling phones, recording lights switching on. Exactly as I knew it would. Daniel slumped into a chair, elbows on his knees, face in his hands. Madison stared at him, horrified. "You said those bonuses were from work," she shrieked. "You told me your boss gave you those raises. You liar, Daniel didn't even look up." Thomas cleared his throat. "Effective immediately, all financial support from Mrs. Halston is terminated." He let the words sink in. Madison reeled backward, as if slapped. "Terminated. She can't do that. We're family." I met her eyes for the first time since the slap. "Family takes care of each other," I said quietly. "You slapped me because I hesitated to hand over my home." "You aren't family, Madison. You're a threat." Madison's face twisted into a furious mask. "This is ridiculous," she screamed, pointing at my secondhand dress, my worn purse, my cracked glasses. "She's poor. Look at her. She's been living off cheap furniture and flea market clothes. She has nothing. People shifted uncomfortably. Her voice was too loud, too desperate, too revealing. I straightened my spine. Neheo Wai said softly, La Tam Kon Jang Mang Madison. Not what's in my bank account. Before the audience could even react, Thomas reached into the briefcase and raised another stack of documents. And now he declared for the part Mrs. Halston asked me to clarify publicly, so there will be no more misunderstandings. He laid the documents across the head table, spreading them out like a dealer in a high-stakes casino. Mrs. Halston's apartment, the one Mrs. Madison Clark has been attempting to acquire, is in fact the least valuable asset in her real estate portfolio. The ballroom exploded. Phones shot into the air. Guests leapt from their seats. Someone yelled, "What the hell?" A bridesmaid dropped her wine glass. Thomas continued without blinking. Mrs. Halston currently owns one commercial building in downtown Portland, 2 rental homes in the Pearl District, a beach property in Cannon Beach, and multiple investment accounts totaling more than $6. $4 million. $6.4 million. The number ricocheted through the room like a grenade. A chorus of disbelief erupted. You're kidding! No way she works at a flower shop. What kind of reverse Disney plot twist is this? Madison staggered backward, gripping the wedding cake table to keep from falling. You're lying, she choked. She's a nobody, an old woman. She drives a 10-year-old car. I smiled for the first time all night, small, steady, razor sharp. Yes, I said softly, because I never needed a fancy car to prove my worth. Daniel finally lifted his head. His face was ghost-pale eyes, rimmed red sweat beating down his temples. He looked like a man watching his entire world unravel in slow motion. Mom, he whispered, why didn't you tell me? My heart tugged, but I didn't allow myself to break. Because I replied, I wanted you to build your life, not inherit mine. He swallowed hard. But you kept everything from me. I nodded. And you kept plenty from me as well? A sharp stabbing silence. Madison turned on him like a rabid animal. You idiot! You absolute idiot! You let your mother humiliate me. Humiliate us! While she was sitting on a fortune, Madison. He muttered weakly, Stop, no. She jabbed her finger into his chest. You said she was senile. You said she needed supervision. You said she couldn't afford to live on her own, Daniel gasps. Wider than before. Every head snapped back toward Daniel. What did she just say? She said he called her senile. Did they try to get power of attorney? The horror spreading across the faces of Daniel's co-workers, cousins, childhood friends. It was almost biblical. Daniel's voice cracked like a snapped twig. I only asked for information. No. This time my voice was steel. You asked banks and attorneys how to take legal control of my property. I know, Daniel. I have the reports. More whispers. The guests were hooked. Nobody blinked. Nobody breathed. Thomas wasn't done. Not even close. He clicked a button on his tablet, and the hotel's projector screen lit up behind us. Mrs. Halston has also asked that I reveal the record of undocumented transactions she has made on her son's behalf. Slide after slide filled the screen bank transfers from my private accounts to Daniel's. Amounts, dates, confirmations, receipts. Guests gasped louder with every page. Daniel crumpled. Madison screamed. And phones continued recording dozens of tiny glowing witnesses. Over the last 4 years, Thomas said more than $160,000 were used to sustain a lifestyle far beyond their means, including this very wedding. If sound had a shape, that moment would have fractured the ceiling. Madison clutched her head. No, that can't be true. Someone stop him. Somebody stop him. But nobody moved. Not one person stepped forward to rescue her. This was their entertainment now, a real-time unraveling of a family built on lies. I stepped toward the microphone, my cracked glasses dangling from one hand. Madison, I said gently, and her wild, furious eyes snapped toward me. You wanted my apartment. She blinked hard, panting. So what? And you slapped me tonight, I continued softly, Because you thought humiliating me in front of strangers would make me hand it over. The room was dead silent. But what you didn't know, I said, is that while you were planning to take the smallest thing I own, I was planning to take back the biggest thing you stole. She frowned, confused. Madison always had trouble anticipating anything that wasn't material. I leaned in. My dignity. The ballroom erupted with applause. Not polite, not hesitant, not sympathetic, explosive, thunderous, liberating. Thomas closed his briefcase with a decisive snap. "This concludes our announcement," he said. "On behalf of Mrs. Halston, thank you for your attention." Before anyone could process the moment, before the applause could fade, before the murmurs could settle, before Madison could adjust to her collapsing world, someone yelled from the corner, "Is it true? She owns a commercial building. Is she a millionaire? Why did she hide it?" But the question that cut through everything, the question that made Madison turn white as wedding silk, came from a middle-aged woman clutching her clutch. If she's worth millions, why would she ever let her son go into debt? Every head turned back to me. Every phone angled upward. Every eye waited. My heart thudded once, slow and heavy. I walked to the center of the room, stood directly beneath the chandelier, and said, because sometimes, the only way to reveal who someone truly is to see how they treat you when they think you have nothing. The ballroom fell completely silent, and that was the moment Madison knew the true wedding disaster hadn't happened yet. It was only beginning. Silence fell again in the ballroom, dense, suffocating, the kind of silence that follows a gunshot before anyone dares to breathe. The chandeliers hummed faintly above us, catching flecks of glitter from Madison's ruined makeup as she stared at me with mascara streaking down her cheeks like melted ink. I stepped forward, straightened my cracked glasses, and took the microphone from the trembling stand. Before I leave, I said, my voice steady, "There is one more thing I need to say, and every single person in this room needs to hear it." Phones rose again like glowing fireflies. Daniel's shoulders squared as if bracing for impact. Madison clutched the side of a chair, wobbling, gasping like she couldn't breathe. I looked at my son first. For a brief second, just a tiny flicker, I saw the little boy he once was. The same boy who used to run into my arms, smelling of summer grass. The boy who cried when he scraped his knee. The boy who fell asleep on my chest during thunderstorms. But now in front of me was a grown man who watched silently while his wife slapped his mother. A grown man who asked lawyers how to claim my property if I ever became incompetent. A grown man who used my money and lied about it. And a grown man who had forgotten the difference between love and leverage. I raised the microphone. "Daniel Halston," I said, "from this moment forward, you are no longer my heir." The ballroom erupted. Gasps, shrieks, "Oh my God," hands over mouths, chairs scraping stunned cries. Madison stumbled to the floor, her knees buckling. Daniel's face contorted in raw horror. Mom! His voice cracked through the chaos. "Mom! No, please don't do this, please!" Tears streamed down his face. He reached for me, desperate, childish begging. "Mi, shin mi, jung lam, the con, sai roi," he cried, switching to Vietnamese, the language he only used when he was broken, terrified, or 5 years old again. But I stepped back. "Stop," I said softly. He froze. "You are not losing an inheritance tonight, Daniel. You lost something much more important long before this." He blinked through tears, lips trembling. What did I lose, Mom?" I kept my voice low, calm, almost gentle, because sometimes softness wounds more deeply than shouting. "You lost your integrity the moment you chose silence over justice." Madison whimpered on the ground, her veil crumpled lipstick smeared across her chin. She reached out and grabbed Daniel's pant leg. "Daniel, tell her she can't do this. Tell her you deserve that money." Tell her he tore his leg away from her grip, collapsing into a chair, burying his face in his hands. What have I done? What have I done? The answer hung in the air, unspoken but obvious. Everything. I turned back to the crowd. My entire estate, I announced, all properties, all investments, every asset I have accumulated throughout my life will be transferred into a new charity foundation. Phones tilted higher. People leaned forward. The room held its breath again. It will be called the Halston Elder Justice Fund, I continued. A fund dedicated to protecting older adults across America from financial abuse from their children, from manipulative spouses, from anyone who sees age as an opportunity to exploit. Several older guests gasped. One woman covered her mouth. Another whispered, "God bless her." I wasn't done. For years, I've watched too many people my age lose everything because their own families treated them like walking wallets, something to empty before they die. Not anymore. I scanned the room, stopping right on Madison. This fund will provide lawyers, housing support, emergency relocation, financial education, crisis counseling, everything older adults need to reclaim their autonomy and escape those who prey on them. Madison shook her head wildly, tears spraying. No, 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 no. This is insane. You can't just give away $6 million. I can, I said softly, because it was never yours. She screamed a raw animalistic sound that made several guests recoil. Her perfectly manicured image shattered into something desperate, feral, unrecognizable. But there was no stopping the truth now. Daniel lurched to his feet, stumbling toward me, eyes swollen, voice hoarse. "Mom, please." I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. I let Madison influence me. I didn't think clearly. I didn't mean to hurt you. Please, please don't cut me out. He reached for my hands. For a moment, my heart wavered. For a moment, I saw that little boy again, the one who used to say he'd protect me when he was big enough. But then I remembered tonight, and the hallway, and the slap, and the silence. I pulled my hands away. "I'm not punishing you, Daniel," I said. "I'm protecting myself." He choked on a sob. "But I'm your son, and I will always love you," I replied. "But love doesn't mean blindness. It doesn't mean allowing you to destroy me." He fell to his knees. Actually fell. "Mom, I'll change. I'll fix everything, I swear. Please don't do this." My voice tightened, not with anger, but with truth. "You know what hurt me most?" I asked. He looked up, trembling. "What? Not the money, not the lies, not even Madison's slap." I paused. "What hurt me most was watching you stand there and do absolutely nothing." Daniel covered his face with both hands and sobbed into them, shoulders shaking. The sound was heartbreaking, but so was betrayal. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," he cried. "Please, don't leave like this." "I already stayed too long," I answered. The room stared as I picked up my purse, tucked my cracked glasses inside, and walked toward the ballroom doors. Every step echoed against the marble floor like a verdict. Behind me, Madison wailed. Daniel begged. Guests whispered, filming recording, capturing the collapse of an entire wedding. But nobody stopped me. Nobody touched me. Nobody dared. When I reached the doors, I paused just long enough to speak without turning around. "To anyone in this room who has a parent," I said, voice carrying, "clearly remember this one day you will be the age they are now. And you will pray that your children do not treat you the way you treated them." Silence. Then I opened the doors and stepped out. The noise of the ballroom muffled instantly behind me, like the closing of a vault sealing something toxic inside. I walked down the long hotel corridor, the faint music fading into nothing until all I could hear was my own breathing. And then, for the first time that night, I smiled. Just a small smile. Quiet. Calm. Certain. Because tonight wasn't the end of anything. Tonight was the beginning. The next morning, videos of the wedding incident went viral. Mother of groom destroys. Bride and son with one speech millionaire. Mom shocks. Wedding of the year slapped by bride. Her response left everyone speechless. Powerful elderly woman turns shame into justice. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. Television interviews requested. News outlets calling nonstop. But one invitation stood out. An email titled, "America Behind Closed Doors Documentary Feature Request." They wanted me to tell my story, not as a spectacle, but as a voice for silent victims everywhere. And that's when I realized the slap was never the ending. It was the opening scene, the catalyst, the spark. The moment the old version of me, quiet, small, invisible, finally died, and the woman I was always meant to be stepped forward. I typed my reply. I accept. Let's begin filming next month. When I stepped out of the hotel that night, the cold Oregon air wrapped around me, sharp, clean, liberating, as if the universe itself were giving me permission to breathe again after years of holding my lungs hostage. I stood beneath the soft glow of the Willow Creek Grand Hotel's entrance lights, my reflection faintly mirrored in the glass doors. Behind me was chaos. A wedding destroyed illusions, shattered a family tie severed at the root. But ahead of me, a strange and unexpected freedom. For the first time in decades, my future wasn't tied to someone else's demands, someone else's expectations, someone else's entitlement. It belonged to me, just me. I took one slow breath and exhaled the weight of every unspoken plea, every disguised insult, every silent wound I had tolerated for far too long. And then my phone buzzed. At that moment, I didn't know that buzz would change everything. I looked down. A notification. Wedding meltdown goes viral. 1.2 million views in 4 hours. I lost my dignity long before I lost my son, mother's speech, trending nationwide. Halston Truth, Elder Justice. My hands trembled, not with fear this time, but with awe. Something bigger than shame, bigger than family politics, bigger than betrayal, had begun. By midnight, thousands of comments flooded in. My daughter tried to take my house too. I stayed silent for years, but this broke me. Thank you, Margaret. You spoke for all of us. It hit me, then what happened tonight wasn't just mine. It belonged to every older adult who had ever been robbed of dignity behind closed doors. By the following week, my voicemail was full. Journalists, talk show producers, nonprofit organizations, advocacy groups, and then one message that stood out from all the noise. Hello, Mrs. Halston. We are the producers of America Behind Closed Doors. We want to feature your story as the opening episode of our new season. I sat frozen on my couch, the sunlight drifting across the wooden floor of my quiet apartment. My safe place, my last piece of autonomy, feeling something shift deep inside me. They wanted me, not as a victim, as a voice, as a catalyst, as proof that a single mother could rise against a system that told her to stay quiet. The documentary team drove up from Los Angeles a week later. They sat in my living room filming as I told the truth about the subtle ways families manipulate aging parents. The pressure to downsize, make room, or hand over assets. The loneliness beneath polite traditions. The fear of becoming a burden. The courage it takes to say no when everyone expects you to crumble. And for the first time, I didn't feel broken telling it. I felt powerful. As interviews aired across American households, something unexpected happened. Letters started arriving, emails, messages from strangers in every state. I'm 72. My son tried to forge my signature. My family wants to put me in a home so they can sell my house. Your story gave me the courage to fight back. Thank you for saving me. Some messages brought tears, some brought rage, but all of them brought purpose. The Halston Elder Justice Fund, once just an idea whispered, in a ballroom began receiving donations from teachers, nurses, retirees, veterans, even teenagers who had watched the clip online. People who had never met me but believed in what I stood for. We hired lawyers. We created hotlines. We covered emergency housing for elderly victims escaping manipulative families. We held seminars across the country. What started with a slap became a movement. What began as humiliation became hope. And the woman who once doubted her worth became the face of a national conversation America had ignored for decades. One morning, months later, the documentary aired nationally. In the final scenes, I walked alone on a quiet Portland street at sunrise, my silhouette framed by the golden light. The narrator's final words played softly. Sometimes the most powerful revolutions begin not with a roar, but with a woman who finally decides she's had enough. And as the credits rolled, I felt something warm spread through me, peace. Not because life had become easier, not because everything was fixed, not because my son came back or apologized, but because I had become myself again. Not someone's mother, not someone's bank account, not someone's burden. Just Margaret, strong, whole, unapologetically alive. If you've stayed with Margaret's story from the first second to this final moment, then you already know her journey wasn't just hers. It belongs to every person who's ever been underestimated, every parent who's been taken for granted, every soul who had to reclaim their dignity the hard way. If you listened until the very end, comment below Margaret 1000, so I know you walked through this story with her. And tell me, what country are you watching from? I'd love to know where Margaret's voice has reached. Finally, if this story touched your heart, share this video so more people can hear her truth and maybe, just maybe, find the courage to rewrite their own.